Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the movie discussion Pocket Dimension, where time does not exist and God damn it,
The only
time
thing
does
that
not exist. The
matters.
only thing that matters is film.
There you go.
Mess it up every time.
You're getting better.
But today we're going to be discussing May, the film from Lucky McKee from 2002. I'm Jay, that is Cole, and Cole hasn't told me what he thought about this film yet. I was kind of iffy on even recommending this, but I'm really interested to hear his thoughts. But this is one that I'm a big fan of. I've liked it for quite a while, and it's one of the more I don't know. I guess you could say popular films from the early 2000s. Horror wise. He as we were discussing before the show, he actually got a Masters of Horror episode. I guess because of this film. So that's pretty cool that he even had that opportunity. But yeah, man, why don't you let us know what you thought?
Yeah, so when we made the decision a little while ago to going towards Halloween to lean towards some, horror type movies and darker movies and stuff, we pulled up sort of the list again of stuff that we'd written down and thought of, and we were re-looking at those ones, and May was the only title I didn't recognize. So I kind of said, "What is that?" And Jay said, "Oh, from Lucky McKee and stuff." And the name didn't mean anything to me either. It turns out like I never seen anything of his, and I just somehow missed, I guess there was a little bit of hype around him when this movie came out, because again, this is early 2000s, and you know how horror's been the last 15 years or so. Anything that comes up gets a little bit of hype if it's good, because there's just not usually a steady stream of great horror coming out. And I don't know, I must have missed out on the hype or whatever for that, and also because he's only 42 now, so he would have been very young when he did this movie. He would have been like in his early to mid 20s, I guess, directing this film. Following kind of a familiar setup, although it does get different as it goes, where it's sort of like a disturbed young woman kind of in her descent kind of like into madness or whatever, but in her own unique style, I guess. I'm not sure I know the actress either. Her name was Angela Bettis.
Mm-hmm.
I've probably seen her in things now, but the name I knew, of course, is that there's a supporting character played by Anna Faris in here, so you get to see a young Anna Faris.
Yeah, really. I mean, Scary Movie is pretty much the only thing she had done at this point.
Yeah, really, it was.
Jeremy Sisto.
What's funny is that Angela Bettis had, around the same time, done something similar in that she played Carrie in the 2002 TV remake of Carrie.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I have seen, although again it's forgettable, so I don't really much remember it.
I don't know why people continue to make remakes of Carrie. It's been done.
And now I know what I remember her from. She was one of the patients in Girl Interrupted, which is a movie I like a lot. I really like that. But as far as like the last few years, she hasn't been anything I've known, except it says here that she was in the movie Sinister, but her scenes were deleted. So no chance of seeing her there. Oh, and she also does a voice in another one of McKee's movies, in the Woods. I guess there's a voice, and she does the voice. That's kind of interesting. I do want to see the Woods now. I like the setup. Although I have to say I'm kind of lukewarm on this movie. Like I like things about it. It's it's a fairly short movie. It's just short of an hour and a half. It's like an hour and 25 minutes maybe. And really the first hour is the setup and how, I don't know. And then like the last 20 minutes is really when shit hits the fan, and she starts to do the truly weird stuff, and we get to our ending. And I don't really like that structure. I feel like it's uneven. I feel like they could have started that a little earlier and made it more kind of half and half. I feel like this movie's kind of the opposite of front loaded. I feel like it's end loaded in a way. Like all the good stuff is like in the final 20 minutes. Like I don't think the first hour is bad, but parts of it I just didn't think were very interesting. And I don't know. There weren't too many scenes that, I mean, it reminded me of a lot of things. She's awkward and weird and is really struggling to make connections with people. And plus, there's just sort of the general sort of coldness and indifference that she gets from the world, also, which complicates things and makes it worse on her. It's all pretty familiar stuff that I've seen in other movies.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you that it is kind of end loaded, but I feel like it really needs to set the precedence for her character, and apparently, listen to the commentary with the director and some of the other, writers and actors and stuff. There was a few more scenes, or there was a good many scenes that were actually filmed, but not, shown in the final version. A few other different storylines going through there that just didn't mesh in the final cut. But it I think it does a really good job of showing her struggles, and then just eventually just break, and her psychosis takes over.
Sure. I just wish there was a bit more of that, I guess. I feel like it's all over a little too quick. Like I said,
Yeah.
I can handle a long setup, but then it feels like the long setup led to a fairly short period.
Hmm.
And I don't know, maybe it's better not to stretch things out. But
Yeah, I was actually thinking that I didn't remember the ending of it being that fast.
mhm,
Like, it was, she basically just went here, killed this person, went there, killed this person, and
yeah.
then sewed them together, and it was over.
Yeah, the last 15 minutes
Oh.
it's a lot of stuff. And after that, it's much slower and more deliberate, which I get. It's a good thing
Mhm.
in its way, but I just felt like the film comes off uneven because of that. And
Mhm.
also, while I get what it's doing with a slower build up, and I often praise movies that have a slow build up and don't rush and stuff, I just felt like in the build up there wasn't really anything particularly interesting or unique to me. It was all a little bit predictable and familiar. Not that there's any problem with how the actress did stuff, and I don't know, like she's the setup's weird too, kind of, because like just to show us that she's had like kind of a weird childhood. The only thing they give us is that she had a lazy eye, which seems to
Mhm.
suggest like that would be the root of deep psychological issues or something. I'm sure lots of kids have had that issue where they had to have a lazy eye for a while and get it
Mhm.
corrected. And I
Mhm.
realize kids can be ostracized for anything, and you
Oh,
know, kids are cruel. They were back in my day. They are now. She had to wear an eye patch, and I guess she wasn't very social. And she did have a fairly weird mother who gives her the idea that she eventually carries out in the movies, which is if you can't find friends, make one. And so she gives her this really creepy doll that she'd made, or I guess her mother is an amateur doll maker, and she insists that the doll can never be taken out.
right.
And what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So then she sort of forms like this weird kind of friendship with the doll as her only friend, but she also sort of seems to hate the doll too because it reminds her of how she's a failure in life and how she's lonely and stuff. So you have scenes of her like threatening the doll and being angry with the
Well,
doll.
there's a certain period of time, or a certain a few times in the movie when the doll gives her some bad advice, and she's not happy with that at all. And that's when she hits it really hard, and it cracks, and it continues to crack throughout the
Yeah, you
film.
see it. Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. I like the way they did that. It's at one point she's talking to whatever the guy that she likes,
Adam.
Adam, and she's like, "Shut the fuck up" or something like that. She's like yelling at the closet where the thing is. And he's like, "Who are you talking to?"
Yeah, the crack is kind of cool. Every once in a while, at the end of a scene, they'll show it crack a little more. It's symbolic of uh, her own psyche as it starts to crack and come apart. I can appreciate that. But yeah,
Yeah,
you don't actually hear the doll speak, right? It's all in her head. Like we
right.
don't hear anything. I was just making sure because I was reading a thing and it talked about how like she imagines it talking to her. I was like, were we supposed to hear it? But no, we don't hear it. She just answers it back. We
Yeah,
don't
I think
we don't actually
yeah.
we don't actually hear anything. What was the doll's name?
Polly, is that right?
Or no, I think Polly was Anna Faris's character.
Oh, you're right. Shit.
Anyway, I kind of think the doll's name should have been the title in a way, even though I know it is about May. And then in the end, when she like remakes herself, she names herself Amy. She moves the letters around from May to make Amy. But yeah, I almost felt like the doll's name would have been a more appropriate title. Not that it makes a huge difference. Susie.
God, Susie, man, I was way off.
Yeah, Susie is the doll's name. Well, Polly is in there, but it was Anna Faris's character. Yeah, so she works. She's in her later 20s now, and she's mostly been kind of a weird loner. And now she's been working at a veterinary office, an animal hospital, and she's uniquely suited to it, I guess, in that she's not like freaked out by like, you know, surgery and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's all fine with her. It doesn't bother her at all, which I guess is good. But at the same time, she doesn't really seem to have much empathy for the animals either.
No.
As we find out, like when she first meets Adam, and she says, "Well, some people think it's kind of gross where I work," and he's like, "Oh, I like gross. Tell me something gross." And I think he's expecting
That was a mistake.
something different. Instead, she tells about how like they had to use smaller sutures on a large dog that they'd operated on, and then like later in the day, the sutures gave way and the dog's guts all spilled out all over the place. And she was just like, "It was a mess."
Huh.
You know.
Yeah, and he had apparently like rubbed all along the fence line, and like there was blood all across, on the fence all the way around.
Yeah, so big red flag right there.
Quite a few red flags around this girl that he should have known.
Sure. I mean, part of it you can like say, good for him for giving somebody who's socially awkward a chance. But at the same time, it's like maybe you should use common sense too.
He's kind of an odd character too. I think that he's supposed to be a big Dario Argento fan, right? Like he's a aspiring filmmaker.
Yeah, I know he's a fan of like dark stuff in movies. Yeah.
Well, he's at one point he's reading a book about Dario Argento's work, and then he goes to see Trauma.
Yeah.
Like he leaves her to go see the movie Trauma, and he has a bunch of. I think he has opera, a big poster of opera in his room. So obviously, big, Argento stuff. But he really doesn't seem like a type of guy who'd be like that. He feels like a jock.
Yeah.
Did he come across like that to you? Like he just like an asshole jock who just. But he's obviously attracted to May, so I think that's why he's kind of attracted to her and kind of the weirdness too.
Yeah, I mean maybe that helps it make sense. Like when the first time when they're together and stuff, he puts on like some little short film with like cannibalism because he wants to like see her reaction to it, and he gets more than he bargained for because she's actually turned on by it, and then tries to sort of imitate it when they first start making out together and stuff, and then he's just so upset and freaked out that he leaves without really. I mean, a person like her, a normal person would understand the social cues, but she's just left a little mixed up. Like he's not direct enough with her after that. Then he's sort of vague. Like she's still calling him, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm kind of busy." He's not being direct, which he should be. And he later even does try to apologize to her for like not dealing with her in a mature fashion. He does kind of try to apologize, but he's kind of fucks that up too. So. But what she likes about him is she thinks he has beautiful hands. And we see that she starts to fixate on people's various body parts that she thinks are their most attractive qualities, which, all leads up to the climax, of course. Although it takes quite a while in getting there. I mean, I don't know. I could have used a bit more substantial stuff in the middle to lead up to it. Although I'm not sure how it would be done. Because I know, like, as far as, like, killing somebody, it has to be fairly late in the movie. Otherwise, she would probably get caught. She has to have all the killings kind of close together so she can pull them off without getting caught, I suppose.
Well, and picks a great time to do it. Halloween, where she's dragging a cooler through the streets dressed as a whatever that doesn't raise too many red flags considering,
Yeah. I give the actress credit because her like voice and manner changes too when she becomes that character. Suddenly her voice sounds a lot more mature and older, and she doesn't sound as like a weird little girl as much and stuff, and she's much more calm and sure of herself. It's interesting that she undergoes this transformation at the end, where now she finally is sort of confident and knows how to deal with people, but of course it's only because she's going to murder them.
She kills Anna Faris, Polly.
Yeah.
And then the Ambrosia, the lover of Polly, comes over, and she says, "Spin around for me," or something like that.
Yeah,
like something she never would have done before. Been that assertive, which I thought was interesting. And then of course kills her too for those lovely gams, stems, wheels, whatever.
Yeah, so that's one of the subplots is that like Anna Faris is her coworker, although at the animal hospital, but she doesn't do any of the nitty gritty stuff. She's the receptionist or whatever. But from the very beginning, you see that she's got a crush on her, and she very openly hits on her but she's got the fixation on Adam, so she more or less just politely ignores it until then. Once Adam seems to dump her, then she decides to, I don't know, just because she's lonely. We don't even know if she's really attracted to Anna Faris or not, or if she feels that way, but she's lonely, so now she'll let Anna Faris, take her out on a date or whatever, or be together.
For some melon or something. This is what she says. We'll go out and have some melon. Such an odd thing to say.
There's quite a few odd lines
Yeah.
in the movie.
Not to derail us too much, but I was going to ask you, what do you think about the music in the film? Lots of 90s alternative in there.
Yeah, they did a good job of finding quirky stuff that sort of fits the vibe. They had that little cutesy thing a couple times with the song where the girls sing about like how he calls me kitty and stuff like that. And, it fits the vibe. Animal Hospital plus later there is a cat and stuff. So good choices there. It definitely fits the atmosphere and adds to it because it's definitely sort of a quirky movie. Like it's a dark movie with upsetting, disturbing stuff in it, but it's also quirky. And I don't really think any of the parts were funny. I think sometimes the humor sort of, I don't know if the humor falls flat or if it's just on purpose, like it's supposed to be awkward and annoying. Like, because I don't think any of it was really genuinely funny, but you could just sort of be like, yeah, that fits because awkward, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I would almost consider it a dark comedy, but like you said, it's like unintentional humor.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just the awkwardness of May is funny, a lot of times. Like there's one point when they're in the laundromat with Adam, and he runs out of detergent or whatever, and so she says you can use mine, and like spills it all over him trying to hand it to him, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah, he just doesn't react. He's just like, thanks.
Whatever, dude, bro. Let's play some beer pong.
He didn't seem that bad, but I know what you mean.
He did. Did he not? I mean, it's like this guy doesn't seem like he'd be like a film aficionado. Like,
yeah, he doesn't seem like. I mean, he's like a mechanic too. He doesn't seem like some sort of misunderstood intellectual or anything like that.
I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be like that, but I mean, it's a film. I feel like he was a little miscast.
It happens sometimes. It's like one of our very early episodes. We did singles, and they did a good job on most of the characters of like that early '90s Seattle grunge scene and all these alternative type kids and stuff. But then you had the main character. I can't remember his name, Campbell Scott or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he just sticks out like a sore thumb. Like he doesn't fit in with any of them. Like he just seems like a total preppy guy who's just in this really, again, grungy indie rock alternative scene. And he doesn't seem to fit it at all. And he's the main guy. I think so. It happens. So I kind of feel like you're kind of right. Like this, like it would have been fine if she liked this mechanic and stuff. But for him to have this whole thing about being into like horror films and the real classics and stuff, stuff that most people don't know about, it doesn't really seem to fit him too well. So sometimes when you get like when you have a small movie like this, you can understand like what kind of pool did they have to draw from when it came to casting the role. Did they really have that many great choices? Yeah.
Well, I think he went on to become a pretty big actor.
Oh yeah, I don't recognize the name, but again, I'm Jeremy Sisto. Yeah, that's somebody. I know I've seen him and stuff. I've seen all these people.
Probably seen him carrying a football and something.
I see he's done quite a bit of TV, which again I'm not great at. But let's see. Wow. Speaking of like movies with like specific kinds of characters, he was in Clueless, so that's kind of interesting.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I bet that's where most people would recognize him from.
And I would never remember this because I haven't seen it in 100 years, but he's in The First Wrong Turn, so another horror movie, and then pops up here and there and stuff. Wow, I had no idea. I didn't recognize the voice at all, but he's the voice of Batman / Bruce Wayne in the adaptation of Justice League: The New Frontier, which isn't a great adaptation, but isn't bad.
I think he may have done another Batman and Robin too, one of the animated things.
Yep, he was Talon in Batman versus Robin. Again, one of the lesser ones. It's not bad though. It takes the whole Court of the Owls story and puts Damien in it. The whole idea is like they're trying to recruit Damien to their side and stuff. And yeah, he plays the Talon, the guy that tries to steal Damon away from him and stuff. So yeah, so some voice work. So he's been around, but he's not a guy that's memorable to me. Like,
I think the first guy she kills in this film is it the guy with the weird mohawk thing.
Yeah, she kills the punker guy.
What'd you think about that guy?
His name's James Duvall.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't recognize him, but again, it doesn't take very long to. I guess he's the guy that played Frank in Donnie Darko.
Yeah,
I would never have known. I mean, his hair is all done up. He looks different. It doesn't take much to fool me, I guess.
He's been in quite a few Greg Araki films.
Oh yeah.
He was in Totally Fucked Up, The Doom Generation, Nowhere. Probably some of the other ones too.
When I see him like in this picture with his normal like long hair down to his shoulders, I recognize him. Like he's like one of the guys from the trailer park in Independence Day.
Oh yeah, that seems about right.
Oh man, he's in Go. Yeah, okay, yeah, I like Go an awful lot. So he's in a couple of movies I like a lot. I like Donnie Darko and Go a lot. But no, I didn't recognize him at all in this. All they had to do was change his hair a little, and I guess that was enough.
Have you seen Nowhere from '97?
No.
I would say definitely check that out because it's very '90s and very alternative.
Yeah, I like that stuff.
Based around like Jordan Ladd, Christina Applegate, tons of people you would recognize. But James Duvall's in there as well.
Rose McGowan.
Oh, Ryan Phillippe's in there.
Yeah. No, I've heard of that one. I just haven't seen it yet. But yeah, that seems kind of my style. Oh, look at that. Rose McGowan and Mina Suvari in it. Yeah, so that's pretty 90s right there.
Oh, yeah. Mina Suvari, yeah. Very nice.
Nice.
It's just like a lot of people's lives together, and it's all, has all sorts of alternative music, playing in the background everywhere.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to check it out.
But I don't know if you knew this, but May, one of the editors, was Ryan Johnson.
Wow, the big director now?
No, the big guy, yeah. And
somewhere.
He was
the big director that Disney fired.
That everyone wants to crucify now.
Or no, he's not the one that Disney fired. He's the one that people hate because of Star Wars, right? Yeah. Who's the guy that got fired?
Oh,
the guy that did Guardians.
Oh God, James Gunn.
Yeah, anyway, I was thinking James Gunn, but yeah, Ryan Johnson. Yeah, he's the Star Wars guy. I don't have a problem with the new Star Wars, as we talked about. I think they're fine.
But apparently, him and Lucky McKee were pretty good friends once upon a time because he was the editor on this, and then Brick and Looper, Lucky McKee's given a special thanks in the credits. So
I was thinking about Brick the other day because the movie I saw at the film festival, I just haven't finished my diary on that. I still got 2 more films, and the last one so people can look on my channel for that if they're interested in any of those films. But the last one I saw was Under the Silver Lake, which is by the same writer-director that had done It Follows.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things about it that kind of reminded me of Brick.
Really?
Well,
I like Brick a lot. I'd like to do that film one day.
I love Brick. We'll probably have to cover that. Well, it's not, except it's like, I was going to save this for the review, but I'll just say, like, okay, if you want to know, like, if you want to, like, a general idea of, like, what Under the Silver Lake feels like, it's kind of like you take Brick with the kind of that old school noirish type plot, but then instead of being all gritty in that way, you run it through a filter with like Brian De Palma, so you get sort of that slick neon kind of stuff. And then
sounds cool to me.
And then you set it all in the background of the dark LA weirdness of something like Mulholland Drive. And I know most people will be like, that sounds like an amazing movie. Well,
yeah.
It has its... I'll have to get into it in my own thing, but it's of the movies I saw at the film festival, it's the only one I'm still really kind of undecided on. It definitely had things I liked, but I don't know how satisfying it is as a whole. It tells kind of a really meandering type of story. full of weirdness and stuff. It's a good role for Andrew Garfield. He's pretty good in it. As sort of like the consummate noir hero, which usually means, if you're a noir hero, it means you always get beat up and you never succeed. There's scenes of him like failing in every way. He'll get beat up or he'll get drugged. or at one point, just some girls. He's in a girl's washroom, and the girls like knee him in the nuts, and he collapses. Like he goes through just pretty much every indignity you can imagine. He'll wake up in weird places. One time he has to run home naked. Like he gets his car vandalized. Like everything. Eventually gets his car towed. Like just everything goes wrong with him. But it has all the stuff that you might expect from that director. If it follows. A lot of the directors, this new generation of directors, especially doing horror, they're so obsessed with the retro stuff and the past stuff that even when they do something new, it's just all full of homages and shout outs to the past. Like everyone's watching It Follows, and even though it's set now, everybody's driving 40-year-old cars and they're watching tube TVs and everybody's using analog things because he's that kind of director. And I understand. I like that stuff too. I like analog stuff. It looks cooler on film. It's more interesting to watch somebody put a record on and play some vinyl, or put a cassette into a tape player, that kind of thing. And that is very much present in this movie too, although in different ways. Also, I won't give anything away, but I'll say like he actually has a fairly substantial collection of Nintendo Power magazines, and they even wind up being part of the plot and stuff. So there's lots of that kind of window dressing going on in this movie. Anyway, I'll talk about it more length on my channel, but it was cool. I'm glad I saw it, but as I said, I don't really know how good it was as a whole. I think it left a lot to be desired, and I was definitely, when it ends where it ends, I was quite dissatisfied. And you know me, I don't need a super conclusive ending that ties everything up in a bow, but this sort of almost felt half-assed to me, kind of. But anyway, so that's what I was thinking about Brick, because I was trying to think about like how I would classify this movie and how I would describe it, and I'd be like, yeah, it's kind of like Brick with Brian De Palma's style. But then, Mulholland Drive, dark LA weirdness. It's an interesting mix. It's certainly an interesting film, but at the end, I'm not sure how I completely feel about it. But I like seeing Andrew Garfield. And hey, if you like Ricky Lindholm, the blonde from Garfunkel and Oates, and she's also stars in and co-created that show, Another Period. If you ever wanted to see her like fully naked and get a really good look, this movie's for you. So,
I think she's fully nude in Hell Baby too.
They even seem to make joke about it in the Garfield and Oates show, because there's like parts where like she's trying to be an actress, and several times they're like telling her to like take off her top and stuff, and she's just like, yeah, okay. So, I guess that just mirrors her in real life, where she's like, yeah, I'll do nudity. I don't care. Good for her.
Sure. I mean, yeah.
Anyway, she's not even important in the movie, but there is a sex scene at the beginning with him and her, and not only do you get that, but then they're like in bed together and she's topless, so you get a really good long look. It's not like a quick thing at all. So if anybody's, I don't know, she's attractive. It's kind of interesting because I think she's quite a bit older than Garfield, isn't she?
She was born in 79.
Yeah.
Garfield's probably, what, 85 or something?
Yeah, I think he's younger than me. So, I mean, it's not a big deal. It's like this huge disconnect. I just mean, you usually don't see that in movies. It's usually the guy with the younger girl. And it's not like he looks way younger than her or anything. It's just because I know both actors fairly well. Anyway.
Wow, it has Riley Keough in there too.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of hers.
Well, she's much more important in the movie.
Nope, he's Andrew Garfield's just right around your age.
Oh, yeah, I would have thought. I would have thought like 85, 86. Anyway, still younger than her. Not that it's a big deal. It's just something that I noted because it doesn't usually happen in the movie world. But yeah, we'll definitely do Brick at some point because I really enjoy that, and that kind of was like brought Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who'd had that weird transition from fairly popular child actor, but couldn't really, this is the same sort of thing. Once they get around in their early 20s or something, it's like, we can't find roles for this person anymore, and maybe a child actor's all there'll be. Like, Brick kind of, like, saved him and, like, paved his way to be, like, an actor as an adult, and he's gone on and done pretty well. I've enjoyed a lot of stuff he's done. I never saw 500 Days of Summer. I think it would just bum me out.
Yeah. It was Hell Baby that she was in. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for that other movie I was talking about. Yeah.
I did not like Looper. I'm one of the only people. I don't like anything about Looper.
Didn't either.
I'm somebody that wants like time travel to be complicated and cool. In this, they just gloss over it. Like at one point, he's talking to his future self, Bruce Willis, which doesn't add up at all. Their ears are so different, the ear structure. But anyway, and he's just like, "Don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter." Which is basically him hand waving it away to the audience. It's like, "Don't think about the time travel stuff. We just do what we want to do with this." I don't know. I didn't think it was a very good movie. Certainly not for the amount of hype it got. I know our friend Piz was a big fan of it, and there were a lot of people that really liked it and thought it was such a really smart, taut thriller. I was like, I've seen way better.
I would say I probably need to watch it again, but I don't really want to. Like, I didn't like it either. I was just like you.
I don't. I saw that in theaters, man. Like I caught the hype for that. I was like, yeah, let's see this in theater, and I was just like, even from the very first time I watched it, I was like, this is it. Like I didn't think it was bad, but I was just like, this is what everybody's like talking about.
It's just very underwhelming, I think.
Yeah, and that's how I felt.
The makeup they did on Levitt was terrible.
Yep.
The
big disconnect.
Ugh. What terrible casting. I mean,
there's just too many movies that have Bruce Willis in it just because of who he is, I feel like. And Bruce Willis is kind of like turned into Samuel Jackson in the last 10 years. He's in so many goddamn movies.
Yes.
I constantly see him showing up in the movies that had on Netflix, that never had any sort of theatrical release. And there he is, front and center. I'm like, you need the money that bad, Bruce? You're a huge star.
Who knows?
Like just the other day, I was looking, and he's in some movie, like the 50 billionth movie where he plays a cop. Of course, I don't know what it was, but it was just something that showed up on my Netflix, and it's like a 2017 release. So I was like, "What the hell is this?"
Well, I mean,
in a bunch.
Until about a decade ago, I would say he was, batting 1,000. But
I mean, in the last decade, now he just is in everything.
But it's
and
not
sometimes
good.
They just throw him in stuff for name recognition. Like, why is he in the G.I. Joe sequel? Well, because he's a name, and they think it'll give them some legitimacy to have a big guy like him in it, so they just stick him in there, if it's stupid as it is.
Yeah.
What's funny is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It was in the first G.I. Joe, which was awful miscasting. But I still stand by the second one's at least fun. The second one is at least fun. The first one is just a horrible train wreck.
He was Cobra Commander, right?
Yeah, which is so stupid. So stupid. They kind of gloss over it, and that Cobra Commander is not only played by somebody different in the next one, but just seems more like what you expect Cobra Commander to be like. Like it's almost like they just erase it, which is what I'm fine with. They seem to realize what a mistake it was having him be that.
Does he pronounce everything with like really hard S's?
He doesn't really. He doesn't get to talk. He actually doesn't get to talk very much because there's only like really short bits with him, like at the beginning and the end. Because like for most of it, he's like captured or something. I can't remember.
Because in the cartoon, that's how you know he's bad, because he sounds like a snake.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he's like the same voice that did Starscream in Transformers.
Really?
I think so. Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Do you remember the crossover episode?
Mm-mm.
So in like the much maligned third season of Transformers, where everything's different after the movie, the Cybertron stuff and everything changes. The episodes people don't like as much, Now they're on Cybertron. It's all about Rodimus Prime and Ultramag. So there's a thing. So now it's 2006, the future, right? So now we got Future Earth, and it's it's a little different. 2006, the future. But anyway, so there's this whole thing. There's episodes called Only Human, where Rodimus, RC, Springer, and Ultra Magnus are like chasing some sort of like human terrorist, and the terrorists hire this well-known terrorist called Snake, who is clearly Cobra Commander in disguise, and he has like this invention that once they follow him into this warehouse, and he shoots them with this beam, and it turns them all into humans.
But Transformers? Wow.
Yeah, the Transformers. But their bot actually it like takes their souls or whatever and puts them into human bodies, because their bodies are still there, but there's empty hulks, because the idea was to steal their bodies to commit crimes with. So yeah, you get to see those four characters be humans. Of course, by the end they get everything back to normal. But the terrorist, known only as Snake, actually gets away. It's a great moment you can probably find on YouTube where like the bad guys get caught, but Snake, who is basically Cobra Commander in like a long trench coat, like walks away, and he says something like, "They just don't make terrorists like they used to," and he gives a crazy Cobra Commander laugh and walks off. It's actually pretty funny. I had it on tape for many years, is why I remembered it so well. Not a good episode at all, but interesting for that, in that it's kind of like a crossover. It seems to suggest that, like, in 2006, Cobra's gone downhill. They don't exist anymore, but Cobra Commander got away, and now he's like a freelance terrorist or something. It's kind of interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like something I definitely would have watched back in the day.
Yeah, well, Transformers was my favorite show by far as a kid. Like under 10 anyway. Once I got a little older, I moved on to other things. Of course, by the time like the early 90s, I already had like a lot of I was already nostalgic for the early Transformers, which when they first aired were, before I was even watching TV. It's like the first season was 84, right? So it was all repeats by the time I started watching in the later 80s. And of course, in the early 90s on YTV in Canada, they had this whole thing where I think they called it Generation 2 or Generations, but all it was it was the same original cartoon, but they would do like this weird framing thing where it'd be like and move the screen around and stuff. It was so stupid. I have episodes like that taped. They probably did that on some American network too, I assume. It's really dumb.
I'm sure, yeah.
So even some of the ones that I taped are from that era, which is kind of too bad because they're not in their pure form and stuff. That's how I've got a really good episode taped that has Devastator in it, and a really stirring speech by Optimus Prime at the end that I love. I probably described it before on air. I like it so much. It always stuck with me. Optimus Prime was such a role model for me. Okay, since I brought it all up, I'll just do this. So they're doing this sort of drilling thing where the Decepticons, for whatever reason, are trying to just drill through the Earth. But now they're going too far, and if they drill too far, the whole Earth will like explode or shatter, right? But they're not worried about it because they have their space bridge, so they're going to jump on the space bridge and get out. And they're like, "Fuck Earth, we'll just take the space bridge to fire." And of course, the Autobots are going to try to stop them. But then Devastator is the big countermeasure. Like they're like, "How do we stop Devastator?" So Wheeljack, the Idea Man, comes up with this device that they put individually. It secretly put each device on each individual Constructicon. So once they form Devastator, he comes under Autobot control. So that's how it works for a while. So that and then they have to use Devastator to destroy the drill because the space bridge gets damaged. So the Autobots and Decepticons have to work together. And begrudgingly, Megatron's like, "Fine, I'll work with you anyway." So Devastator successfully destroys it, but it looks for a while like he's not going to. And anyway, Megatron and the rest fly off. So then there's the part where all the Autobots are standing around together, and they're like, "Yeah, we did it. Earth is saved," or whatever. And then Devastator comes up, and he's just like, "Where did everybody go? Where is noble Megatron?" And Chip, the human character in the wheelchair that people might forget, but he says, "I'm afraid Mr. Nobility was off saving his own hide." And Devastator goes, "No, he went off to plan to fight Autobots in the future." And then he just flies off, and then Chip just sort of looks really sunken and downcast. And one of the Autobots goes, "What's the matter, Chip?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't know. I was just hoping that maybe this time Devastator and the Constructicons would join the Autobots for real. But I guess that's just a dumb old dream." And then Optimus Prime says, word for word, I promise, he says, "Hang on to those dreams, Chip, for the future is built on dreams. Hang on." And it gets very stirring music. Dum, 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 dum. Anyway, it always did stick with me. I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that great voice, too.
Oh, Peter Cullen. It's kind of sad that he's still doing the movies because the movies just,
it's not his fault.
Well, at least he's finally getting money for it. It's not like he made money for it back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Really. So, I'm happy. Yeah, good old Peter Cullen. Great voice talent. He was also the narrator in Voltron.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful voice. Canadian. Peter Cullen.
Really?
Yeah, it's from Montreal or something like that. But, getting back to this movie, I think about some of the scenes and stuff. It's funny, like, I like violent movies, and I watch it, like, this is still a movie that manages to sort of make me feel icky in some of the ways. Like, I'm always better at people being stabbed than them, like she slashes somebody's throat, and there's a thing where her wrist gets cut, and that stuff still makes me go, ugh, a little bit. It has those moments. Not that it's not really gratuitous, though. It never really lingers on any of that stuff, so I can't really just accuse the movie of being squicky.
Yeah, it's a super low budget film. Obviously the gore effects are all, covered up. You put a hand there and blood squirts out. But
it's not bad.
It is what it is.
It doesn't take me out of it by any sense. Like I said, it was still effective enough to make me go ugh a little bit.
The part that really gets me is when she brings the doll to the class with the blind kids, and they're all, they want to take it out and play with it, so they keep fucking with it, and they eventually drop it. Old Petey drops it, and the glass is everywhere, and they all scramble to get to it. They're just all like getting cut on the glass and stepping on the glass and putting their hands in the glass, and they're blind, so they don't know what they're doing. So it's just blood and glass everywhere.
When it was first mentioned, like that they were near a school for the blind, she's watching the kids, and it's like, oh, well, those kids are blind. They go to a special school near here. I was like, what are they going to do with this? Like, I was like, there's got to be there's got to be going somewhere that there's blind. So yeah, after her both attempts at relationships fail, she freaks out Adam, so he avoids her, and then, as like sort of a rebound, she decides to hang out with Polly, but then she sees like Polly only wants to like have fun with her, because the next time she goes to see Polly's got ambrosia over, and she's like, I gotta hit that.
Polly seems cool, man. In my early 20s, I would have been good friends with Polly.
Yeah, I'd be like, for sure, let's
hit that.
Let's hit that. Let's have all the fun we can. Although again, Polly doesn't express any interest in men necessarily, but who knows? But yeah, so she's upset about that too. So then it's like after that, she's looking for sort of like an outlet. So she decides after watching the kids, I have no idea why, she's like, I would like to volunteer to like work with them. And they're like, fine. Not much of a screening process. Okay, well, fine.
I love the lady's response. Like, she said, what are those kids in the park? I want to work with them. She's like, what are they? Are they dumb, deaf, retarded?
What kind do you like?
What kind of fucking kids is this?
She's like, the blind ones. He's like, well, be those ones? She's like, why? You need specifically those blind kids? Don't you like blind kids in general? Or something weird like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, there's like... So then she decides to bring, the doll to them for some reason. Although you get the feeling she's never actually brought the doll out before.
Right.
Susie.
Well, she had just come to the conclusion that it was her best friend. Apparently she didn't know that before. So
yeah, that's right. And I guess she wanted to share that with them or something, but they're just like, it's just a box, because they can't see, right? They're like, take it out of the box. She's like, oh no, it can't come out of the box. And they wrestle it down, but yeah, still, I don't know. I know they're blind and stuff, but you think the sound of glass breaking would be some sort of cue to them to not like put their hands everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's some sort of maybe paranormal, going on there. I don't know, something extra that makes them go crazy like that.
Right, so that Susie can break free.
Right.
Although she doesn't so much break free as break, because then of course it leads to her being broken, and that's the final break for May. It's like, oh, that was all I had left, and now it's gone, and that's where she really goes over the edge.
Yeah.
And starts enacting her plan to make a new friend. Literally.
Yeah. Yeah, on her way home, it shows her in the elevator once again, and previously there was a couple in there, which is actually Lucky McKee and his wife making out. And then when she is all covered in blood, holding, was it Susie covered in blood? The broken pieces, yeah. They're all they're not making out. They're just kind of huddled in the corner looking at her all weird, because she obviously looks terrible. But I don't know, just little things like that I think really stand out to me. I mean, for a low budget, basically it's this guy's first feature film. He did do All Cheerleaders Die, but it was kind of a really low budget thing. I don't even know if it was a feature beforehand.
Yeah, I've heard that's the only title I've heard by him before today. I'd heard of that title.
I think they remade it actually.
He remade it himself or something.
Yeah. And it's All Cheerleaders Die. That's it. It's not bad.
He went to a few festivals. It was at the Brussels International Festival of Fantasy Film. It was at the Catalan International Film Festival, where it won Best Screenplay. So, it got around. So, I understand how some hype could have built for this and stuff like that. What's interesting, it says, right at the bottom of the Wikipedia page, Lucky McKee has stated that May wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Amanda Plummer's character in The Fisher King. I can't really remember enough about The Fisher King to make that connection. I know that she's kind of an odd character. I remember that. I'm pretty sure that's the character that, like... Isn't that the character that goes on the weird date with Robin Williams, where he's like singing to her in a restaurant or something like that?
I can't remember Amanda Plummer being in that movie. at
Yeah.
all.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not that person.
No, you're right. It is. I mean, she is in there, but I
Oh,
don't
I know she's in it, but I
recall.
just mean I thought maybe it was the woman that goes on the date with him.
It very well may be.
Because there's this scene, and I've always thought about it, not because of having watched it myself, but because once I saw like an interview with like Zach Galifianakis of all people, and they were talking about like asking what he liked about being in movies basically, and he just said there's some scenes out there that I think they're just magical, and he talked about that scene, the restaurant scene, which like where Jeff Bridges or whoever it is out with some woman, and they go on like a double date with Robin Williams and this other person, and it's just sort of like a series of, it's like a montage, just a series of scenes over time of them being in the restaurant, and at one point Robin Williams is like singing a song to her and stuff, and he just says how charming and wonderful the scene was, and he says sometimes Hollywood gets it right. Now I think about that. But no, I guess Amanda Plummer. She was Lydia Sinclair. Yeah, that name doesn't mean anything to me. It's been too hard for me to remember. Yeah, I'm right. Yes. He's the one that dated with him. Because the whole thing basically is that she's a shy introvert, really. She's obviously not dark and twisted or anything like May, but I guess the idea is it's based on like sort of a shy introverted person that's awkward with people and stuff. Yeah, I haven't seen The Fisher King all the way through in like 100 years.
I watched it back when we did something with Robin Williams on the Sausage Factory, I think.
Yeah, we did like a sort of a tribute to him.
I watched it then, and that's been what? It's longer than you think, man. It's been like 4 years ago.
About 4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I get where it's coming from now, because now that I don't remember the movie that well, but I remember the gist of the character, which was she was, sort of a shy, introverted person that wasn't really good in social situations, etc.
Yeah, he wrote this in college many years before, so
Right.
he probably wrote it after he saw this movie, maybe after he saw Fisher King. But also heavily influenced by Taxi Driver.
Oh yeah?
As you can imagine.
Like for what? Like the dark ugliness of the world type thing?
Some of the monologue, the way the character acts. She, sits there and has a monologue with herself.
I see.
After she snaps, I think it's sometime after that box breaks, I believe.
Right. So yeah, it's really about her struggle to have like a meaningful connection with other people, and the barrier she faces, and how, again, sort of the indifference of the world makes it so hard that she finally snaps in a fairly creative, entertaining fashion. Because the final straw for her, again, too, is like Polly kind of guilts her into taking in this cat that I guess had belonged to her landlord or something like that. So she says, yeah, I'll take care of the cat Lupe. And after she'd had like her freshest rejections and stuff, she's asking Lupe to come over, and Lupe doesn't come over. So she like angrily throws something at her and kills the cat.
It's the ashtray that Petey made for her.
That's right. Yes.
That has her name. Apparently, Petey has great penmanship as a blind person, and wrote May at the bottom of this ashtray.
Nice.
And that's one of the things that she uses on. She switches the letters around to form Amy, which is the final Frankenstein monster she forms at the end. That needs an eye. So it needs to be able to see her, right?
Yeah.
I'll give her.
That's how the movie opens. The movie starts with the shot of her stabbing herself in the eye, and then it very quickly flashes back to her childhood, and then the movie moves on. But yeah, it's one of those bookend type movies. I wish there was a little bit more stuff about her childhood and stuff. They gloss over it kind of a bit. Like, we get that her mother's sort of condescending and possibly, emotionally abusive, but we don't really get enough of it. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I mean, it gave you enough, I guess. Maybe you didn't see enough of the emotional abuse or whatever, but you already said it was kind of backloaded, so that may have made it even worse.
That's true. It does seem kind of backloaded in that way, or in that. I don't know. It takes a long time before she gets truly over the line, which, again, I get what they're doing, and so I'm not really sure, but I think I would have made it a little more 50-50.
Hmm.
Although I can't say explicitly how I would accomplish that, but
Yeah, it's like third act is like really really
really
fast.
fast. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just felt like structurally, yeah,
Hmm.
it is uneven, and
Sometimes I'd like to see
hurts a
directors
little
take
bit.
kind of artistic style with that. Not being so formulaic as to bam bam bam. But yeah, I can agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, structure is always a tricky thing. You know, sometimes, as you said, if a movie feels too structured, then it's just too predictable
Hmm.
and it's not really that interesting. But if a movie is too fragmented, we could say that it's incomprehensible and stuff like that. This movie is in between that. It's not fragmented or anything, but again, I just feel like it's uneven in its approach. I just feel like the build up or whatever you want to call it is overly long, and then the denouement is overly short and abrupt
Hmm.
kind of feeling. But I understand again some of the limitations they were faced with that budget and stuff like that. So, and some of it was, as I said, just logistics. Because if she'd killed somebody like halfway through the movie, then there'd probably be an investigation into it and stuff. So, she basically kills her first person, the punk guy that comes over, and then it's like the very next day that she sets out and finishes on her little spree there.
Hmm.
Because if she killed somebody way earlier, yeah, it would have been problematic for a lot of reasons, plot
Hmm.
wise. There'd be an investigation and stuff like that. It's not like she really did anything to cover up her crimes, and she's got her weirdness going on. Like she keeps the cat's body with her. At one point, she's spraying it with air freshener, and then she eventually shoves it in the freezer.
I think she skins it first before she puts it in the freezer because that whatever that thing she has at the end has got cat hair like on it.
Yeah,
It's like the
she
cat's
uses the cat hair.
intertwined in it.
Yeah,
It's got a lupe's, a little piece of lupe on
yeah.
it. She sews, so of course, she.
Yeah, but like everything is summed up at the very when she first meets Adam and he asks her what she do. She says, "I work at an animal hospital and I sew."
And
Well,
I
that's
said,
everything you need to know. She knows some things about anatomy from the animal hospital, and she can sew. So she's got the skills she needs for her little project at the end there.
it almost seems like we need a prequel with like the previous 10 years she spent in some sort of institution, where she like just got out because how would a person like that survive on her own?
Yeah, she's already it's supposed to be like in her late 20s, and it's like
Yeah,
I'm surprised this happened so late. You think it would have happened earlier?
but yeah, I mean, in some ways, I think it's good that we don't have any of that extra backstory to worry about. But
Sure. But the movie's just absolutely loaded with foreshadowing, which I can give it credit for. Obviously, the big one again is what her mother said: if you can't find a friend, make one. But then there's the part where Blank, that's the name of the punk, he's got that tattoo. It's a Frankenstein's monster, so that's a little thing there because she's about to sort of embark on sort of a Frankenstein project of her own in a way. Um, the fact that she already makes homemade clothes is another tip off. And of course, her admiration for the various people's body parts that she meets. She likes Adam's hands. She hates Ambrosia, but she does like her legs. She comments that Polly has a very nice neck and stuff like that. And then, of course, later when she says she likes the tattoo. And then early on, or when she makes the revelation that Susie is her friend, she says Susie has always seen her. And then once she makes the new friend, Amy, she's most upset that Amy can't see her because I guess Susie always had very piercing eyes. So, I mean, right from the get go, when it starts with somebody gouging out their own eye, there's going to be sort of a focus on the eyes. Um, we did another movie that had kind of a focus like that in Eyes Without a Face, which was very eye centric and stuff. You can even see little similarities, although it doesn't come close. I think Eyes Without a Face is a really brilliant movie.
I
But
think that's more of that Argento coming through.
sure,
Argento is all about stabbing eyes.
yeah, all uncomfortable stuff. It's weird because of the way it straddles genres. Because I mean, even though from the very outset we know that there's something sort of deeply wrong with her, it still starts out kind of as like almost a black comedy slash dramedy. with the struggles of a young socially awkward woman, and then the last 20 minutes it's like a Frankenstein slasher type thing. It's it's not like it's a completely abrupt shift. You can tell it's going there, but still, as we said, because stuff just happens at such a quick pace towards the end, it still feels abrupt anyway, I guess. Because before that, everything was it was more gradual, and then we get to a point where she goes over the edge, and then it's boom, boom, boom. There we go. Get my fingers working. I also thought another thing about Adam's casting was that he towers over her. Like she's small, but he's tall anyway. So like together he looks absolutely massive next to her, which doesn't mean anything, and I guess it's perfectly fine. It's existed in the world. I briefly dated a girl. She's not the smallest girl I dated or anything. She was maybe 5'4", but she told me before the last guy she dated before me was 6'4", and I was just like, was that really awkward and weird? She's like, it was. So I don't know. I mean, everybody's different about that kind of thing. I mean, some people don't care. But what was the name of the little artistic film he shows? Jay has to step away for a minute. But yeah, so when she first comes to Adam's place, he shows her a little black and white indie film called Jack and Jill, wherein it's like sort of like a parody of like some sort of like 1950s aesthetic of a wholesome couple going out on a wholesome picnic, and then of course they wind up eating each other, and that really turns her on, which is kind of backfiring for Adam, because you know that he's putting it on specifically. He's like, oh, I'm kind of dark and I'm into weird stuff, I want to see what you think of this. And she's like, I think it was sweet. And he's like, sweet. And then she's even trying to imitate it and bites him, which leads to the whole thing, him getting freaked out and leaving her. And then of course I'd rather have Jay here to talk about the very ending, to discuss about what really happened there with Amy in the final shot. But yeah, so the film, with its kind of the arc it takes, it's kind of subject to mood whiplash in a way. Even though the whole overarching mood fits, it's sort of sad and still kind of a bit fucked up and disturbing, and yet it still culminates in something much darker than, although I think most people can figure out it's going there. But I was going to say, so the very end shot, of course, of the movie, I guess is up for interpretation, is that when she gouges out her own eye to give to Amy, so Amy will see, I guess she stabs too far and pierces her own goddamn brain or something, because it's fatal, and our May quietly dies next to Amy, and then Amy comes to life and sort of caresses her with the hands. So is that like, did she have that power, or is she just some sort of hallucinating something in her final moments, you know?
It's probably up for your interpretation.
Sure. Just a little artistic flourish at the end.
Yeah.
You know, she finally has a friend that does see her and appreciate her, but now she's dead. Although it does raise questions. What's Amy going to do now? But yeah. That's probably thinking too far.
Part 2, May, Amy's Revenge.
Yeah.
Might as well. It's this mongoloid, deformed creature thing storming the streets.
Yeah. But I mean,
I'd watch it.
I mean, everybody she kills, like, with the exception of Ambrosia's basically just been a bitch to her. The rest are at least somewhat sympathetic. Like, okay, Adam handles things badly between them, but lots of guys do, and do a lot worse than what he did, where he just basically didn't kind of have the balls to tell her in a direct fashion that it was over. He just sort of avoided her. And like I said, he even in a later scene when they meet up somewhere, he does sort of try to apologize for like not handling it well and stuff. But and of course, Polly genuinely liked her, but she was upset with Polly because she thought Polly liked her in a more meaningful way, because obviously Polly was happy to have an affair, or at least a sexual affair, with Ambrosius too. So sometimes it was just her misjudging people, but it was enough for her to kill them in the end. By the end of the movie, she's killed 5 people and a cat.
Yeah, that's what psychopaths do.
Right. Because I don't think she kills the cat on purpose, but it happens. You know, she loses control for that second, and the cat's dead, and she's not as shocked and horrified by it as most people would be. She's just sort of like, oh, now I killed the cat.
I feel like it's Lupe's fault, really. She wasn't more comforting. She should have been more sensitive.
You should never have those sort of expectations from a cat.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously what they did wasn't, it's what happens in real life. I think that's one reason why I liked this movie so much when I first saw it, because I could really relate to the character of May as far as being like an outsider, type person who's very, keeps to themselves. Obviously, I don't kill people, but I could really relate to her. How she just felt awkward, in public in general. So
Yeah, I can see that.
and she's just a super awkward person, all the time.
Yeah.
Like how she goes up to Adam and just kind of puts his hands on her face while he's asleep, which I don't know who the hell sleeps like this, but
Yeah, I know. He manages to fall asleep with one of his hands sticking like straight up.
um,
But yeah, again, it's like it seems like she would have done something like this earlier too. Like, how can this be the first time she's ever done this?
yeah, how has she not had more communication with people? I mean, people are assholes. That's what they are, for the most part. But I mean, again, what they did wasn't so bad. But I mean, I think Adam made the mistake of showing her this like cannibal film while she's a disturbed person. So
Yeah. Well, I mean,
she,
it was a mistake, but again, I kind of get it. Like, she said she was weird. Maybe he's trying to call her bluff on it a little bit because he's like, "Oh, most girls think I'm weird." Because like when he first meets her, he stabs her with a fake knife. He's like, "I'm a
yeah,
psycho." Stuff like
she
that. Like
loves it.
he wants to gauge her reaction to the movie, and
Yeah,
her reaction actually upsets him because she's like, "I thought it was sweet." And he's like,
yeah,
"What?" And then she even tries to imitate him, which is way too far for Adam. He doesn't
right,
go. He's
right.
not that dark. He even says like, "Well, not that weird" or something like that. But then instead of just saying, "Look, I don't think it's going to work out between us," or "This is more than I bargained for," like he's just like, "Oh, yeah, I gotta go." Which again, I get it. People do that kind of thing, and then he's not really
Well,
firm on being like breaking ties with her. He's just sort of vague and avoiding her and stuff. She's calling him. She's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, I have plans." You know.
I don't know, dude. Gonna go check out a Dave Matthews concert and maybe play some frisbee golf.
Oh my god.
Um, but I mean, not only does she bite his lip and like make him bleed, right? But she takes all the blood and like rubs it all over herself.
Yeah, that's it. I could the biting I could get again. I've known girls that bite a little, but that's going
That's
far.
that's what I was gonna say. I mean, I may could get around the bite, but it's what she did afterwards.
No, it's definitely
It's
disturbing.
that's a pretty bad bite. Looks like too. So, um, yeah, apparently that's actually based on a true story. A girl that Lucky McKee was uh, was getting intimate with in one of his college years.
Oh god.
She bit a chunk out of his lip, filled her mouth out with blood, and then spit the blood in his face.
Yeah, it's a deal breaker for me. I mean, I think I'm a pretty open person, but deal breaker right there. Yeah, I gotta
Uh,
I gotta draw the line somewhere, even if she's super hot.
gotta have your standards.
Gotta have my standards.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that.
I don't know. I don't know. A fairly like common kink is like S&M, and honestly, I don't like that either.
Mhm.
Like to the point where I don't mean I'm not into it. Like I actually really dislike it. Like I can't be restrained. I like
Oh,
if
fuck
somebody
no.
puts like handcuffs on me or something, like no way. Like I'd be like, oh, but don't you trust me? No, I don't trust anybody. And it's not even that. It's part of my sort of claustrophobia. Again, I don't get claustrophobic in most situations, but if it's a can't move situation, so no, I don't. I wouldn't want a lover to like tie me up or anything like that. Like even the light S&M stuff. I'm not talking about like beating me with like a, I don't know, ride cropper or whatever like that. I just mean even like that playful stuff. Like the closest I could come with that is like if you want to blindfold me, okay. This is in case anybody's watching and wants to get involved with me physically. Obviously, I'm letting you know you can blindfold me maybe, but that's it. That's it, people.
You don't want her to like bunch your testicles up in a wad and like beat it with a leather strap or anything.
Yeah, no,
That's
that
I don't know what people get out of that. That's
that's not my kink.
uh,
Not judging, but yeah, no.
I was watching a French movie with Gerard Depardieu not too long ago.
Oh god.
One of his like early films from like the '70s, and it was all about that.
Oh
And it
yeah.
was like hardcore shit they were doing even back then. Before it was like more acceptable than it is now.
What's that movie that
That's
he did with Robert De Niro that's really hardcore?
Ronin? No.
No, it's from the 70s too. It's really long, and they're like friends growing up. It's notable not just for like, and there's a part where it's not them, obviously, it's boys. It's a flashback to them when they're kids, and I can't remember what's going on. But not only does it show like their penises, but it actually shows them erect, which is really fucked up thing to show in a movie, right?
You said Robert De Niro?
Yeah, he and Robert De
Oh,
Niro in it together. I can't remember the name of the movie, but I guess it has some interesting stuff even beyond that.
that seems like it would immediately get, banned from stuff right there. Having the children. Whenever you have children doing stuff, it's usually a no-no.
Well, I mean, usually you can get around like naked kids of a certain age in a movie. It's just okay, it's not child pornography. It's just a kid that's naked. Like the same thing as you see like kids say under 10 in a National Geographic running around in a village somewhere naked. But yeah, this was like specifically like sexual, which is like kind of amazing.
1900.
Name of this movie?
1900.
Was that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm 76.
Wow,
317 minutes.
Yeah, super long. I knew that too.
Yikes.
An Italian epic historical drama. Yeah, like he and De Niro were like friends that grew up somewhere. I'm always interested in long movies, and that's the only reason why. Like, I didn't even know about the content when I started looking into the movie years ago. I just remember people talking about some of that stuff back on the old IMDb message boards. I was like, wow, that's in the movie. Holy shit! But it also covers sort of an interesting time period and place for me, like the early 20th century, and it goes right into World War II.
Same director as Last Tango in Paris. Not surprised.
Yeah, that's got some edgy stuff.
No, we got these kids. They'll sword fight, but they don't have swords.
People love that. Well, some people, yeah.
There's definitely an audience for it.
Yeah. But yeah, well, I mean, I would like to see it, just because, again, I sort of have a fascination with some of these really long epics. But now that I've seen House that Jack Built, I'm like really, even though I know I'm not going to like it, I just am really determined to see Dogville or Dogtown or whatever it's called.
That's not the one with Bjork, is it?
No, that's Dancer in the Dark, which I've seen.
That's a hard movie to watch.
Yep. But I'd actually say House that Jack Built, despite its like brutality and stuff, isn't nearly as hard as some of the others.
I'm sure it's not. I'm definitely going to watch it.
Well, yeah, I did a review on it, so I'm not going to go into it and stuff like that. But I'll just say the biggest surprising thing about it, and this isn't a spoiler, is just how funny it was. Like, it's the blackest comedy I've ever seen, but the comedy works. Like, there's scenes like where horrific stuff is happening, but it's handled in such a way, and there's a juxtaposition there with stuff that it's just more absurd than anything, so you can't help but laugh. So there's parts where, like, certain people, not everybody's going to laugh, because there's also people that were completely disgusted and upset with the movie, like, where I was genuinely laughing, and I wasn't the only one in the theater. We were like, oh my god, that's, like, you could only laugh at it and stuff. No, really good movie. I was really, really happy with it. I'm sure you'd like it. I'd be pretty surprised if you didn't. But yeah, I hadn't thought about 1900 in a long time. Now I'm back on that kick. I'd like to find it and watch it. Look, Burt Lancaster and Donald Sutherland both have like small bits in it too.
Yeah, I was reading some trivia that Donald Sutherland was so, I guess, angry at his depiction in the film that he couldn't watch it. Some fascist leader or something.
Yeah. Wasn't it weird that Donald Sutherland was the guy in that Italian movie we watched?
So weird.
Casanova. Like, what an odd depiction. Again, if people want to defer to that video because it's weird. Because it's like Fellini basically just wanted to do a character assassination of Casanova. It's like, I don't like Casanova, and I'm just going to like demystify him and make him stupid and annoying. And that's basically what they do with Donald Sutherland. They got Donald Sutherland with like a big fake nose pontificating on all this stuff, and the great lover is always just him just doing missionary going ugh, ugh. like there's your great lover, it's just some guy pumping away.
She's into it.
Yeah.
No, I just thought it was hilarious that I had a tweet or the message I was going to send to you. It's like, man, this guy looks just like Donald Sutherland. because I had, I didn't think he would be in there. And, obviously I looked it up, beforehand, or I would have looked really stupid. But
he's had an extensive career, as has somebody like De Niro. Because when people think about De Niro, they never think about 1900. Just like they probably don't think about him in Brazil, which is one of my favorite De Niro roles.
Yeah.
This completely British movie, and De Niro is just in the middle of it. It's like he's almost like Mario. He's this Italian plumber guy with special powers. Right. Almost. I love Brazil. Talk about that forever. But yeah. So although I was a little underwhelmed by this movie. I mean, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was anything special and stuff. It did kind of make me think about like other movies that have that kind of like psychological edge to them. And I was thinking maybe next week. I mean, we don't usually float this out, and we haven't talked about it, but maybe it's a possibility in the lead up to Halloween we could do one of my favorite movies about like a woman having a psychotic break, which is Repulsion from what's his name?
Polanski.
Yeah, Roman Polanski. I love that movie, and I actually have it taped so I can watch it on TV, which is nice. So I think that might be a good one to like bookend this one with.
Sure.
It's a much more arty, high concept movie, than this. Whereas, and it's of course an older one, a black and white one. But it's always I've been fascinated ever since I saw it.
I feel like we talk about Polanski enough on here. We need to go ahead and do one of his movies.
Yeah, let's do one of his movies.
I mean, we've talked about Repulsion multiple times on here before, and we even talked about doing one of his films for the Masters series.
Yeah, that's right. He almost made the cut for Masters series. So yeah, I always thought that too. Since he didn't make the Masters series, we should still do one of his films because I am mostly a fan of his work.
Yeah, I like The Tenant a lot as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. Knife in the Water.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Rosemary's Baby.
What's the Vampire Hunters one he did?
Yeah, it's called The Fearless Vampire Hunters.
Yeah. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, it's fun. I feel bad watching it because it's his fiance who starred in that.
Sharon Tate.
Yeah, Sharon Tate. Like that was like she was on the cusp of probably breaking through as a big major movie star because, well, for one thing, she had the connection with him, but she was also just a very beautiful, marketable woman and stuff. And then the thing happened. One of the most famous crimes of the 20th century.
Jacob McCullum says, "I'm too greedy to be handcuffed. It doesn't scare me. I'm just very handsy. It irritates me. Not my thing."
Yeah, well, like I said, some people like having a certain amount of control, and other people don't mind being passive. I can go back and forth, but as you said, if you're handcuffed, then you can't go back and forth. You become the passive one until you're. Not to get into a deep discussion about it.
I just do my best Donald Sutherland impression.
What woman could resist?
You can't. It's Casanova, man.
Yeah, I was thinking about long movies again because last Sunday when I saw the Chinese film Ash's Purest White, which is 2.5 hours long, the guy that introduced it, he mentioned that we were making sort of a commitment to this movie since it was 2.5 hours long. He said, but if you want to make a real commitment, tonight there's another Chinese movie, and it was at I think it was called something like The Elephant Who Stood Perfectly Still, and it was 3 hours and 50 minutes long, just 10 minutes short of 4 hours. And he was trying to sell it to us that it was, a unique opportunity to have like that kind of experience in the theater. It almost won me over, but at the same time, like I'm still super broke from buying tickets for that and stuff. So I was like, no, I can't do it. But I was tempted just to be able to say that I saw a movie that long in theater. Honestly, that was a draw. I mean, he was saying the movie was good too. He was saying, oh, it doesn't feel that long. I'm like, I bet. Oh yeah, it only feels like what, 3 hours and 10 minutes. Yeah.
I mean, I could do that if there was a proper intermission. Which you have a film that long, it needs an intermission, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if they were offering one or not. The closest thing I did to that in the last few years is one of the best movie experiences I had was when, back in 2015 in October, to mark that date, they had they showed the first two Back to the Futures back to back, and that was really fun. And that had a brief intermission in between the two. They're not neither movie's long, but you put them back to back, it becomes a thing and stuff. And that was a great night, just not to see that, but also my girlfriend at the time, being from China, she'd never even seen the movie, so it was a really great experience that she could see them for the first time and stuff. So that was one of the best times I've ever had at the theater, was being able to see those two with her. Glad my theater still does cool stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know what the longest single movie I saw in theater was. Probably nothing that long. I don't think anything that was 3 hours. Oh, again, yeah, it's probably Return of the King.
2.5 hours, I think, is totally okay.
I'd say anything over 2.5, I'd classify as long.
Sure. I mean, around 3, yeah.
Because I think Return of the King is like 3 hours and 40 minutes or something. The theatrical cut.
Is it really?
It's just about.
Wow.
It's something like that. I think it's slightly over 4 hours. The extended edition.
Wow.
The Return of the King. Which I like, but I always thought was a problem with the original book too. Was like the ending is too drawn out. Even in the original book, the ending's too drawn out. How it just sort of keeps going. It feels anticlimactic to me to have them going back to the Shire. Especially in the book. The book would have even been longer, because when they go back to the Shire, Saruman, the evil wizard guy, he's not actually dead at that point. They kill him off in the movie, but now he's not. He's taken over the Shire, and the hobbits return and overthrow him themselves. And that's all done fairly quickly, but again, it still adds some stuff onto the book. So, I mean, I love the Lord of the Rings book so much. To me, they're almost perfect, but if I had one little thing, I do feel like the final ending point in Return of the King is too drawn out, and they do kind of the same thing in the movie too, so you're kind of like, you know, the end bad guy's killed, and you still have like 40 minutes to go. It's like, whoa. But yeah, that's probably the longest movie I've seen in the theater is Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
200 minutes. The theatrical.
So that's an hour. Okay, 3:20. I thought it was like 3:30.
Yeah, you're close.
I think the extended cut is right up around 4 hours, though.
263. I think it might be over 4 hours.
It's right up there.
Trying to think, what is Schindler's List?
I didn't see that in the theater. I was too young.
Yeah. I was too young, too, but I saw it in the theater.
It's funny. I was thinking about like Seinfeld, how like Seinfeld like focuses on two really long, drawn-out movies in the 90s, like Schindler's List and The English Patient. Mm-hmm. Like there's two they both have episodes that revolve around them, mostly just how they're long and boring.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've never seen The English Patient, never will.
I haven't either.
No interest in seeing something like that.
I think it was playing when I was working at the theater, though, and I never had a desire to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Schindler's List is 3 hours, 15 minutes, so.
Yeah.
I saw that. That was one of those movies, it was like, oh, you got to see it. And the same thing that they say in Seinfeld, but, you know, obviously I'm not Jewish, but it would be more important to a Jewish person.
I mean, I really like Schindler's List. I was just too young to see it.
Sure.
But I like Schindler's List quite a bit. I think it's really great. Well done.
I was not old enough to appreciate it by any means. I'm probably still not old enough to appreciate it, but.
Well, I was super young when I saw Gone with the Wind. I remember, like, Gone with the Wind has sort of a tradition of coming on TV sometime around Easter. Mm-hmm. And I remember being, like, 9 years old. And because I was spoiled, I used to get Easter present, too. And I had an Easter present that was a Lego castle. And I remember spending, like, the afternoon. It was a rainy day, and I was down in the basement putting together the Lego castle. And so I didn't pay a ton of attention to it. But, I mean, I did watch in its entirety Gone with the Wind on TV. The colored version, while I put the castle together and stuff, and I don't know. I remember it pretty well, so obviously I did pay attention. I mean, I did watch it again when I was older. But
my parents have never been extremely big film fans, but that's one my mom's always loved. She always watches it, so I kind of grew up watching it all the time with her. She always had it on.
That's always like around Easter, the biblical epics come on TV. You can see like the Ten Commandments. That'll be on from like 1 to like 6 on TV with commercials. Oh, I've never seen that in its entirety, but I've seen most of it. Ben-Hur I've seen in its entirety. Because those were a big deal back in the late 50s, early 60s, the biblical epics and stuff. So probably the longest movie I ever watched on Netflix was Cleopatra, which is just short of 4 hours. because they just seem to
Wow.
think like that was the future of movies. Like they got into the 50s and 60s, and they had bigger budgets and stuff. They're like, this is what everybody wants to see, just big epics with like all the names and stuff. And then, of course, when we did our series about New Hollywood, it was almost a deconstruction of that. It was kind of like an answer to that. It's like, you don't always have to do this to make a good movie. You can make a movie that's much shorter and much more minimalistic and stuff. So refer to our series on that where we talk about that a little bit more. But I am kind of in the mood because they put it in my head to embark on some really long movie sometime soon.
Yeah, I might try to do something like that after Halloween, but
yeah, I might do it with Dogville or Dogtown or whatever like that. Speaking of Netflix, that's how I saw both. I watched them separately, although not that separately. The 2 volumes of Nymphomaniac.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
those are both good.
Yeah, interesting film.
Shia LaBeouf. We're fucking for real. We're really fucking.
Yeah.
God, that guy. You remember that was the whole appeal? It's not simulated sex.
I thought it was.
It is, I think.
Yeah.
You know how he's so...
I mean, it's very graphic, but I don't think it's real.
Let's get a stunt dick in here for Shia.
Well, I mean, and again, when it's that graphic, it might as well be. They might have, like, when they do sex scenes that are that graphic, where the guy's like behind the girl, like pumping like that, and it's really close up and stuff like they just might as well. You're already pretty much that intimate with the person. Is it really going to make a big difference? But then again, I don't know the etiquette there. I know that you would never ask like real actors to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's funny because like there's some movies out there. I remember we talked about that movie where there's a movie that shows like a blowjob, but it's not a real dick. But still, it's a fake one then, and she's going down on him. Like that's still very pornographic, even if it's not a real dick. It's pretty much the same thing as seeing some porn star, doing a dildo in her mouth or whatever, right?
Isn't that the Meg Ryan? Is that a Meg Ryan, the Brave one or something like that?
No, it's not the Brave one. That's Jodie Foster. That's a pretty good movie.
Oh,
no, In the Cut.
In the Cut, yeah.
I can't even remember, but there was another one too. That's more like that. In the Cut's awful, by the way. It's not worth watching.
It's not good. No,
it's a piece of garbage, is what it is.
I picked it up for like $1, and it's not good. It's very predictable.
Yeah, but I like the Brave one. It's one of those movies that follows the same plot. Like the Brave one, Harry Brown. They're both like the same movie, just in different settings. Ms. 45, it's something bad happened. I got a gun, now I'm killing people. But they're still entertaining, good movies, yeah. Probably the last thing I saw Jodie Foster in that I liked. That's like 10 years ago. Talking about Jodie Foster, because we did Silence of the Lambs with her last week.
No, you probably saw her in that Matt Damon space movie.
The Martian?
With the Irish or the Scottish guy, Shopley, something like that. Shit. The same guy that did.
How many space movies did Matt Damon do? Because he's in The Martian, he's into Interstellar, and people forget this, and he's in that animated one, whatever the fuck it's called.
It's the South African director.
Titan AE. He's in Titan AE.
Man, I'm not thinking straight right now.
Matt Damon likes space. Matt Damon.
Bill Blomkamp film.
Still not ringing a bell. Sorry. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you saw it. It was pretty popular at the time. Oh man. Yeah, it was called Elysium.
No, I didn't see it. It's been on my Netflix thing for forever. I haven't seen it.
Did you see Chappie?
No, I didn't see that either because I hate District 9.
You hate District 9? Wow.
Whoa,
hold on. Those are... we may have to turn this off right now.
So I have no interest in seeing the others. I couldn't stand District 9.
Oh, man. I like District 9 a lot.
I thought it had a neat concept. I just did not like the execution one bit.
Shots fired.
So I'm not interested in his films at all. That's why I haven't watched Chappie. Which also is on Netflix, or at least it was for a long time. I could have seen it, but I didn't.
I think people are on the fence with Chappie. And Elysium, really, for that matter. Chappie?
Elysium looked it looked accessible to me, but then I just never bothered.
She's the like president of the space thing. There,
Yeah, I remember now. I remember she's all like in white.
Yeah,
I remember seeing it in like previews and stuff. Yeah,
that may be the last thing that I remember her doing. Still, that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like she came out as a lesbian and decided to end her career.
Fair enough.
I mean, everyone in the industry already knew. Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, if she wants to end her career, that's fine. I mean, that's what I don't get. Like, I mean, I understand if you like what you do, wanting to keep doing it and stuff like that. But sometimes I think audiences have weird, unreasonable expectations about what artists are supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, okay, so in the last few months, Weezer did a cover of Toto's Africa, which most people thought was, oh, that's so great. I think it's an okay cover. There's actually a band called, they're like a little sort of like boppy pop punk type band that I like called Reliant K. And they did a much better version, if you ask me. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the other thing is, like, I guess in the recent months, like, Rivers Cuomo has been, like, touring by himself. And he's mostly just been doing covers and stuff. And unlike YouTube, a lot of people are like, enough with the covers already and stuff like that. And one person's just like, he needs to get back to his roots and blah, blah, blah. All I'm thinking is, like, he doesn't need to do anything. He's Rivers Cuomo. He's one of the most popular and successful songwriters of the last, like, 30 years. Mm-hmm. Weezer was a super innovative and awesome band. I mean, eventually things just have to end. Maybe he can't go back to that place. I mean, think about pretty much any band. Almost all their best stuff was before they were even 30. It's weird. Songwriting seems like something that should get better as you get older, but it doesn't. There's just some sort of magic about your youth. You know, Paul McCartney's not gonna come out with an album now that's gonna rival something he did with the Beatles, and that's okay. So I get really annoyed sometimes when I see comments like that from people. They're like, he needs to get back to his roots, or he needs to stop. Like, he doesn't need to do anything. He can just do covers for the rest of his life if he wants to. I mean, what the fuck have you accomplished? Where's Cuomo? Maybe he's a little tired of writing songs. Like, I don't know. I mean, sometimes, yeah, they set a good precedent. Like, when you have, like, artists that are super productive. And at the same time, they're not machines. And if they want to stop or if they want to do something different, fine. You know, just be happy with a body of work.
Sure.
I don't know. That's just been bugging me the last few days. Not that it's really important, or not that it really is that relevant to much we're talking about.
I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
And it's kind of the same thing. You can get it to, like, filmmakers and stuff like that. Like, we would all love for, say, like, John Carpenter to come out of retirement and knock one out of the park, but, you know, he's run his course. He doesn't need to do anything else. Yeah. I like John Carpenter. I'm not going to dislike him if he decides, like, this is it. That's fine. We need new filmmakers, and luckily there are lots of good new filmmakers. You know, we'll try to focus on some of them as we go forward on the show, the younger generation coming up. So, I never knew about McKee, but he gives you some hope. As we said, this was his first movie, and he was quite young when he did it. It was in his early 20s, so I don't know what he's doing now, but he's only 42, so there's plenty of time for him to get more projects going. I know it's always tough when you're not some big name thing to get funds together to even make a movie, so, you know, there's a lot of harsh realities in there. It's very hard to become an established director where you get to the point where you can just sort of pick and choose projects.
Right. Yeah, what I was going to say earlier is, you know, isn't there some sort of correlation between, like, the drive? Like, once you get successful, like, you don't have the drive anymore, so you're not really pushed like you were before to create that stuff like you were beforehand. Like, right. You're living like a cush lifestyle. What are you going to sing about? You know, like, oh man, I got to get new tires for my, you know, expensive car or some shit.
And sometimes having more perspective on life doesn't always translate it into better art. Sometimes the immaturity is what makes the art stand out. Again, there's some sort of youthful exuberance in, say, like the Beatles' work that, you know, they're not going to do when they were like in their 50s, 60s, and so forth. Like, it's gone. They can still play the songs and do them pretty well, but that burst of inspiration they had, it's not the same. And that extends to almost everything. It doesn't even have to be pop music. Like, I'm sure John Williams can still make good music, but I don't know if he's ever going to come out with something that was better than some of his most classic stuff, you know. And again, you think, well, why not? Especially in songwriting, you accumulate more knowledge. Like, you have a better, you know, repertoire. You think you have more skills, more things to draw from, more experience. But it just doesn't work that way with a lot of artistic things.
Yeah.
I'd say actually, just by not really any real research, but just off the top of my head, I think just pure writing is where you have the best chance to still capture something when you're older. Because I've seen authors like who are like well into their careers, 30, 40 years, and just come out with a book that is suddenly just as good as anything they'd written years and years ago. And that doesn't seem to happen too much with other stuff like directors or musicians and stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it's completely unheard of, but I think it seems to happen a little more with books, where sometimes an author who's been around for a while and doing books, and maybe you've even kind of forgotten about them because you don't care about their books anymore, can come along and be like, wow, this is just as good as, you know, the stuff they're known for. That can still happen. That's why I guess I never gave up with Stephen King, because yeah, he would have a few books there where it'd be a lull, and I'd be like, not interested. Then he'd do something where I'd be like, this is way better. So
yeah,
for him, he's an extreme example because again,
exactly.
he's so productive, it's ridiculous.
He's like an exception to the rule.
He makes me sick with his productivity.
Well, and his
pumps out stuff.
I mean, God, since what, the early 70s, right? I mean,
yeah. Just like novel after novel, screenplay, short story collections.
This is some stuff I wrote while I was taking a shit.
Pretty much. Yeah, I think he actually has that compulsion, which I would love to have, because for me, writing takes so much effort. And again, I'm not saying it doesn't take him effort or other people. They obviously work hard, but it doesn't flow out of me the same way. I wish it did. But even when I get inspired, I'm only inspired for about 1,000 words. Then I'm kind of like, I lose steam.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, not everything he writes is good, and not everything, you know, he writes he gives to, you know, someone else to even look at. You know, he knows it's not good, and it's probably the majority of his life is probably spent writing.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it has to be, you know.
Oh yeah, it is.
So I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm just speculating. Maybe missing out on some other things because he spends so much time writing. Just I don't know. We're not talking about just like 8 hours a day type, you know.
Yep.
It's like eat, sleep, shit, right?
I mean, I've been in that mode, but I can't sustain it.
Yeah.
Although I have to tell you, it's been a really long time since I have. Who knows? Things change.
Just need to get some of that Peruvian marching powder.
I know. I mean, that is probably the biggest like lure for me in writing. It's like how many successful writers were like total alcoholics and or drug users. Like so many, like more than almost any other medium. It's like,
yeah.
You know, just recently because of reading the book about the Cronenberg films, it was making me think about William S. Burroughs. And I mean, William S. Burroughs was such a fucking drug addict. And it fueled so much of his writing. And his writing was often about that stuff. I mean, there were two sort of key things in his life, and they were both sort of taboos, and they were both sort of things that he needed, but also knew was kind of bad for him. Now, remember, context is everything when I say this, because one was his need for drugs, and his other was his need for sex with men. Because he was a bisexual, but he was a bisexual who actually preferred, he was on the guy side of being bisexual. Like, women weren't as fulfilling to him. But, you know, he was in an era where any sort of homosexual activity was quite frowned upon, if not, like, practically criminal and stuff. Right. So a lot of his writing is sort of about the struggle about dealing with these two things. His need for having those sorts of relationships with men and his need for fucking substances. And it produced amazing work. So sometimes I think, I need to, like, cultivate some sort of terrible addiction.
It's what kind of drew me to it, and then I realized I was not a good writer.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of what happened when I was a kid with drawing. You know, I used to draw so much as a kid, and then when I turned about 10 or 11, I just realized I have zero talent for this. The things I'm trying to draw don't look anything like what I'm trying to draw, and like, you know, then it just became frustration. And then writing was sort of salvaged that, because I was just like, I can paint the pictures with words. Now they'll just look anything I want them to. It was a nice sort of consolation for me.
Yeah.
But
no one tells you
that's the skill I'm most jealous of people. Like, if there's any skill I wish I had, it's drawing. So
you come to
yeah,
the realization yourself. You're like, I'm not any good at this.
yeah. Being a
My
comic book
parents-
fan, I'm so familiar with so many artists that are artists and writers, and I kind of hate them because I'm like, it's not fair that you can do both. It's not fair. And and even guys like that aren't that good writers, if the art's good enough and the writing is passable, like, I mean, Frank Miller is a good writer, but he's not a great writer. But that's okay because he's got the art thing. I'm sure there's plenty of people that will say he is a great writer. I don't know. Maybe he was at one point. Like, his Daredevil run is very good. I don't think he's written anything half as good since then, but that's okay. He still does fantastic art, stuff like that.
My parents told me I was good.
Yeah, they put it up on the fridge. Put all that stuff on the fridge. Because yeah, from like ages like 3 to like 9 or whatever, I just drew so much, and mostly like with crayons and stuff. I used to literally, I watched Bob Ross on TV and tried to imitate his painting with like crayons and stuff, and I used to. What's weird is I used to sort of draw the same things over and over again. Like, I used to draw birds. I used to draw like a scene with like tree on the ground with a bird flying by. Then I'd draw kind of the same thing over again. I'd make like 10 of them. I like drawing. Dinosaurs was the only thing I had any real talent for drawing. I can still sort of passably draw a dinosaur. Passably.
Anybody can draw a brontosaurus.
Yeah, just tail back, up to long neck, around. There's the thick legs. Boom.
Elephant legs. There they are.
I'm an artist.
Got it. Nailed it.
It's like, yeah, we'll draw him from this perspective. No, perspective. What?
No.
Actually, what's funny is there was a few drawings I can remember I did a kid where I did perspective by accident, and I couldn't. I remember literally. I drew a picture of a stegosaurus, and I somehow had managed to make its tail, that has the 4 spikes on it, kind of coiled around.
Yeah.
And I went nuts trying to recreate that, because I don't know how I did it. Because every time I tried to do it again, I didn't have the perspective. Instead of looking coiled, it just looked like it was like falling back on itself. Like, it didn't look like it was on the ground coiled. You know, it looked like it was on a flat plane, doubled up. And I kept going, what did I do? I can remember doing that. I was so frustrated. I couldn't figure out how I'd done it. I did it by accident.
Yeah, I'm not good, but I do enjoy painting. I still do it quite a bit. But
that's nice. I remember just a few years ago, I was like, I don't need to be good. Maybe painting will relax me. And then I embarked backwards because I didn't realize that watercolor is one of the hardest kind of paintings. It's something you work your way up to. Yeah. Like, you only do watercolor if you're good at the other stuff first. It's like, that's why I bought a bunch of watercolor stuff, and I was so frustrated. Everything ran together, and I was like, this is awful. My mom's like, why did you start with watercolor? It's like, I don't know. I didn't know. But yeah, watercolor takes quite a bit of skill. You need to get your basics in like acrylic and oils and stuff first before you can tackle that. I don't know. You should show me something you painted sometime. I'd be interested. You do like landscapes or animals? Or?
It's mostly I can't think of the word, like Picasso type stuff, like surrealist.
Oh, like abstract art.
Abstract, yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's interesting.
Sorry, I'm trying to respond to a question here.
Oh, yeah. In the chat. Anyway, we've drifted quite a bit. I mean, I like May. I thought May was okay, but it wasn't anything special to me. But it does sort of put me in the mood for that kind of movie with maybe some of the psychological stuff going on. This isn't in stone, but yeah, maybe we will get to Repulsion soon, maybe even as soon as next week, because I like that kind of stuff. But there's stuff I appreciate about this movie. Like we said, there's some artistic flourishes in there. The cracking of the glass around Susie the doll, her her fractured psyche and stuff. And it's a movie where you do feel a lot of sympathy, a lot of pathos for the main character. She starts out with good enough intentions. She simply wants to make meaningful connections with other people, and she is giving it her best shot. And she's just sort of meeting harsh rejection after harsh rejection. And it's true, like, even sort of emotionally more healthy person, that takes its toll, dealing with that. And so when you have the combination of somebody who's not emotionally healthy, you
learn to deal with it over time, and that's like she's
not really equipped to learn or deal with it. She's like, okay, I'm just gonna have to take this crazy extreme route.
Yeah,
which is entertaining.
Which is what psychopaths do. They which is why you say fuck you to someone. They're like, hey, fuck you too, and then the other person will chop your head off. It's like, but yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about psychopaths and stuff lately because of that, and we watched Silence of the Lambs.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started rewatching the Hannibal show, which I like very much. But what's annoying is the third season still isn't on Netflix. So when I get to it, I'll have to find it somewhere else. Because I never got that far. I got about halfway through the second season, and I was liking it. But I was going to start again. I was just going to start at the start of the second season. But then I started watching the first episode of the second season. I was like, there's too much stuff I forget. So I went back. So now I'm on like the 5th episode of the first season.
Is that when Will's like in prison? Doesn't he spend an entire season in prison?
Almost all of it, yeah.
Yeah.
The first season starts with the part where most of the second season's a flashback too, because the first season opens with like a crazy fight between Hannibal and what's his name, Crawford, and it's like down in like Hannibal's crazy kitchen, and Hannibal seems to be gaining the upper hand, and Crawford locks himself in the wine cellar with him beating on it. Then it flashes back, goes 12 weeks earlier, and then it goes into it, stuff like that. But yeah, by the end of the first season, Hannibal's managed to like frame Will for some murders, and he's like locked up, and he's talking to Chilton and stuff. But I was just like, I can't remember enough stuff, so yeah, I went back. So now I'm on the fifth episode of the first season. It's good stuff. I like it. Some interesting choices they make. Yeah, I remember that. Gillian Anderson is Hannibal's psychiatrist. There's a very strong female presence in the show because you have her. And you also have two characters that were previously men in the original book and turned into women. Now, in Bloom's case, it doesn't much matter because Bloom is basically referenced in the book. Never really on page, I don't think. It's just like, oh, yeah, Bloom. Bloom is a specialist from Chicago that you know. In this, Bloom is a very important character and made into a woman. And Freddie Lowndes is turned into a woman, which I think is interesting, gives a different sort of perspective on that kind of sleazebag tabloid reporter with no scruples character. But yeah, there's a very overpowering female presence. I guess it's maybe to balance out because the three main characters are all male because the Crawford becomes so important in a way that he never was in the books. Like Crawford was there, but in this Crawford gets really, you know, he's just as deep in it as the other two, really. Lawrence Fishburne is Crawford. I usually enjoy Lawrence Fishburne. He's a pretty cool actor.
Yeah, it's a shame that show didn't get picked up by someone else to at least give it a proper send-off.
Yeah, a lot of people were really upset when it got canceled. It's just like another one of those shows that like did everything that like audiences and critics wanted, but it's just there wasn't still a big enough audience, and that was enough to get it canceled.
And it's like there was this show, Longmire, something like that. Starred
I remember Longmire, the guy down in Florida.
Lou Diamond Phillips, I believe. It was like it was getting really good ratings, but the age of people watching it were too old for advertisers to want to spend money on. So it's like it got canceled and picked up by Netflix. I think they did a few more seasons of it.
Yeah, that's another thing that's really interesting about movies and comics and stuff like that is the demographics they appeal to, especially now. Because one thing I was thinking about, and I was reading a bit of an article on this too, is that like Michael Moore's newest movie isn't doing nearly as well as his past movies. And it's not because his message has changed, and it's not because he doesn't get good at it anymore. It's because the audience he had is older now, and they're not the driving demographic anymore. The younger youth audience that he really wants to get and will work, they don't really go to the movies anymore.
Right.
And they're not really interested. Like, they agree with, like, most of what Michael Moore says, like, his points about this and that. They agree with it, but they're like, well, we don't need to hear it from him, though. This is just the same thing.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So that's really affected him. And it's kind of the same way with a lot of these things. Speaking of, like, a title that was super well-received and everything, but just didn't sell, was the GCPD Gotham Central book in D.C. that focused on the police officers and not Batman. That managed to run for about 3 years, kind of like 3 seasons before, you know, it just couldn't sustain anymore. It won like a whole bunch of industry awards. It was always getting glowing reviews, but it just didn't sell enough because of what it had to compete with and stuff. So yeah, the demographic has a lot to do with it too, because sometimes like something can do everything it's supposed to do, and it's still not enough because of certain circumstances, and it's really too bad.
Because like, what's the ideal? What advertisers want? They want like 16 to maybe 30, 16 to 35, something like that.
Yeah, within like a certain financial bracket, so they have like a disposable income or money or whatever. You know, either parents that are going to spend money on them, or money that they have.
They're the ones that advertising works on, I guess. I guess old people, they're not gonna, they're too set in their ways because
Right.
I know
Plus also old people have just seen advertising over the years. They've seen it come and
yeah,
go. You get to a point where it doesn't affect you that much anymore either.
yeah, it's just so odd. And plus the whole, the system's changed, like you were saying. So you know, it's a whole new animal now. You know, I don't think they even know what's going to work.
Yeah. When you look at some of the longest running shows, I'm kind of confused by some of them, how they've managed to last as long as they do. But again, some of it's just because people like familiarity, and I even like familiarity to a certain point. Even though I say, oh, I want originality, I want different things, but I am human, and I still do like familiarity and stuff like that. But some shows, when they run that long, they lose it anyway because they have like cast turnover, people leave and change. Like if you liked Criminal Minds 10 years ago, I don't know if you're gonna like Criminal Minds now.
Right.
So many key people have left, not just cast members, but also writers and stuff like that. People move on, and yet the show is still out there.
Yeah, people die in that period of time. Yeah.
I think the show had like 2 spin-offs who both failed immediately.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, because they had one that had like Gary Sinise, I think. And you think, oh, that'd be really good. I don't know if that's the same one, or maybe I'm getting them mixed up with CSI. Maybe CSI was. Well, they had one with some interesting actors, though. Maybe even did have Lawrence Fishburne. Now that I think about it, it definitely had Janine Garofalo. She was one of them in the whatever it's called.
I could see her as a hard-ass detective.
Yeah, because what happened was they did this episode where they met like another sort of team like them. It was just for an episode, and then they were like, "Hey, let's give that team their own show." And I think it lasted 1 season, and that was like 5 or 6 years ago. And the original still marches on.
This is the show that like Mandy Patinkin was on, right?
Yeah, originally he was like the main guy, and they eventually killed him off, and they replaced him with Italian gangster guy, the guy that plays Fat Tony on The Simpsons. Joe Mantegna or whatever his name is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's taken that guy's role. He's like the mentor guy, the guy at the center. Even though the team leader was always that guy that just recently got kicked off. Well, it seems recent. The guy that they got pissed off at his behavior. He was on Dharma and Greg and stuff. He was like the team leader, whatever his name is. Anyway, he's gone now too. The black guy's gone. Shay, something like that. But he just left for normal reasons. He's got his own show now, some sort of SWAT team show. I don't know, something like that.
There wasn't a big controversy about him.
No.
Sexual harassment or something.
Not that one. But there often are.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And this is funny. Like, the most recent example wasn't even sexual harassment. It was just being an asshole. Was the guy that was on Lethal Weapon. Did you hear about that? Okay, well, the Lethal Weapon.
Oh, the new show? No.
Yeah, the Lethal Weapon show? Okay, so the guy that plays, I forget who's Riggs and who's Murtaugh. Riggs? Is Riggs the Mel Gibson character?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, the white guy. Yeah, they kicked him out just for being an asshole. And you know who they replaced him with? This is amazing. They replaced him with Sean William Scott.
Wow. He seems way older than the guy, doesn't he?
I don't know.
Wasn't he super young, the guy that was Riggs?
No, I don't think so. But maybe. I don't know. Anyway. As far as I know, they simply kicked him off just because he was just too much of an asshole. Like, he wasn't doing anything like criminal. He wasn't like sexually harassing or anything like that. He was just a complete asshole, and they just got sick of him and got rid of him. He was just like always. I guess he was just always a jerk on set and hard to work with and said stupid shit. So yeah. So he's
sounds
gone.
Great. I'm glad.
Well, I mean, yeah, there have to be consequences.
Yeah, I always liked Damon Wayans Jr.
Yeah, he's still there. Oh, and I guess he hated him more than anybody.
Yeah.
I guess he really hated him. Yeah, he's okay. He hasn't really done any good movies, but he's okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely like, Damon Wayans Sr. did some serious movies and was also, had the comedic chops as well.
Yeah.
Um, Last Boy Scout.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
Mm. Really the only one I could think of right off. He did that one with Adam Sandler, where it wasn't a comedy.
Oh yeah, I never saw it, but I remember it.
Yeah,
I
that one
can't
was
think of
pretty good.
its title. It's a weird title.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't. Anyway, we can finish up, I guess, as we've meandered a lot. But I mean, I did like this movie. I didn't feel like it was, I don't know, that original or anything. There wasn't anything too memorable about it for me, but it was okay. I do like the spirit of it, and I can understand why it would get a young filmmaker some hype, because it has its moments, I suppose. And I give credit to the lead actress, a pretty good performance. She's especially interesting. It's too bad, again, there doesn't seem enough of it when she makes the transformation, where suddenly she's much more confident and stuff, and her voice changes. I thought that was all really cool and stuff, but it was kind of over too quick. That's when she's committing the murders and stuff. And then sort of a cool, wacky, killing ending, tragic death of her and her creation possibly coming to life to caress her with the hands that she loved so much. Kind of cool. I want to see The Woods now. I think that would probably appeal to me more. I like to set up this idea of an all-girls school. Sounds kind of cool. So I'm going to look into that in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
But so we're not entirely sure what next week is. But yeah, maybe something sort of psychological horror, I think, is where the direction we're going. So a good chance of it being Repulsion. We'll do an announcement and let you know that for sure, because that's one we both really like. And also, as we said, it's kind of overdue to talk about a Polanski film, as we've wanted to do that for a while, and he didn't make it into the Master series, although he obviously very well could have. I'm looking forward to October, because TCM becomes really interesting in October. They show a lot of really cool stuff, so I'll have to make some room to get some stuff in there. I just managed to, I haven't watched either yet, but pretty lucky in that coming out of when we ended the Master series, we did the film by Yasuhiro Ozu, who I'm so always interested in and stuff, and two of his movies just showed up back to back, and a rare instance in that it's a movie where he, back in the 30s, made a film called A Story of Floating Weeds, and then in the late 50s, he remade it himself as Floating Weeds. So I managed to tape them both. So it's kind of interesting. I'd like to see them, be able to compare them to each other and see what's different. The remake is longer. The original is something like an hour and 49 minutes. The remake's 2 hours, 18 minutes, so some stuff is added. But I'm just a massive fan of Ozu, and I'm always in the mood for him for whatever reason and stuff. So that was kind of some luck. So I'm always looking ahead on TCM, but October's usually the best month for TCM, because that's when they start showing kind of like some classic horror and really obscure stuff. So I can't wait to look out for that. So it'll be October, I guess, the next time we see you, and yeah, we'll probably be getting into full horror mode. It's finally getting cooler out there. People see me wearing a hoodie. It's still pretty warm in the days, but the nights are getting cold now. So that's an improvement, I guess.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We're getting there. Yeah, it was just a super hot summer for me, and that came well into September. Like the first couple of weeks of September were just as hot as any other time in the summer, which I know most people are happy with, and you hear it all the time. Like, it's funny, as a Canadian, I always hear people talking about the weather, and it's always kind of annoying to me because I don't feel the same way, because it's always the same small talk people make. Like, I'll be in the store, and they'll be like, well, looks like we won't be getting any snow for a while. Oh, I hope that keeps up. I'm thinking, hey, I want snow, you know? And it's the same thing here with this. They're like, oh, it's so nice and warm. And they're like, yeah, I love it. And I'm thinking, I don't love it. But yeah, it's always the same garbage I hear people saying that when I'm, in line at the store or something like that. Well, we hope that snow stays away. Or I watch the local news, and they're like, I have good news for you. No snow yet. I'm like, hey, bring on the snow. I don't fucking care. I don't drive a car. I don't have a driveway to shovel.
Yeah, true.
Although, I mean, I always have to when I go back to my parents' house, but
that's one thing I can imagine sucking.
As I said, this is literally the worst thing about being a Canadian is this. It's in the winter when you have to get up early to go to, say, work or school or some other engagement. It's a freezing cold morning because it's always the coldest time of day, and going out and either cleaning off or even digging out your car. That's just the worst. You go out, it's so fucking cold. You're so tired because you didn't sleep enough or whatever. It's too early. You have to go out there and clean off that goddamn car in frigid weather. Oh, it's just awful. I remember so much of it in my youth. Like, obviously, I didn't have to do the main part because I was a kid. But I mean, early morning, like hockey games and practices.
Yeah.
just that chilly morning, and then of course we're going to a freezing cold rink, like not like a nice warm rink
Right.
like like the pros play in. No, like a fucking barn. I played mostly at a rink called the Pier rink in the part of town called the Pier rink, and that is a fucking barn. It's so cold. Oh my god. And then later as I got older, I refed there, which was even colder because you're not wearing all the gear, and refs don't wear gloves, picking up a piece of frozen rubber every morning. But that's what got me. I don't drink coffee anymore, but that's what got me into drinking coffee. Was when I was a ref. When I was 15 through about 19, I was a ref. And, when you first start out, you have to do the little kids games. And the little kids games are always the early ones.
Right.
So I'd start doing those, and just like, you'd have 2 or 3 games in a row. So I'd, buy coffee because I had to do something between games. And also it would warm you up in the freezing cold.
Yeah.
So by my like mid-20s, I was drinking a ridiculous amount of pop and coffee when I was jittery as hell. So I cut out coffee, and then only very recently I cut out the pop, which I'm kind of surprised that I've managed to keep it up. I probably didn't expect it to be able to keep going, but so far so good. So that's good. But yeah, those freezing cold mornings digging out the car, that's just the worst thing. Oh man. But again, in my present life, I don't have a car or a driveway or anything, so I don't have to worry about that. So yeah, looking forward to October. It's always a fun month. And hopefully, I hope we won't have to. Hopefully, our schedule will work out. We won't have to take any weeks off in October. Hopefully, we can do something every week, because this is a fun time to watch movies and talk about movies and stuff. So we'll try our best for that. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes things come up, but hopefully, if we can't do a Tuesday, maybe we can do a Wednesday or Thursday or something like that.
Sure.
As far as the other show goes, I haven't heard anything. Is it going to happen?
Me either. It's
the end of September, and
up in the air.
We've never really had a discussion about it, so not sure what the future of that show is. But we can tell you the future of this show, we're going strong. So, and we really thank everybody for being here with us and supporting us and stuff. It's a lot of fun, and we like getting your feedback and having discussions and stuff like that. So, yeah. And on my own channel, I've got a couple more things of the film festival to talk about. A little different direction for me because I've never really talked about films on my own channel. But hopefully that will give me the energy and momentum to go forward and just do some comic episodes too, going towards Christmas. So hopefully that'll happen too.
And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I don't, we don't have ads enabled on here or anything, but we need to get to 100 subscribers so we can have a few extra features on the channel. So
yeah, that would really help.
Yeah. But
so if you
we don't do ads or anything. So if you just, tell a friend or whatever, however that works. We don't normally shill ourselves, but.
Yeah. And we're not going to clutter up your feed. We just do like a weekly show, so you're not going to get overwhelmed with a bunch of stuff. So yeah, if you could subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. And again, we're always happy just anytime people stop by to watch or leave a comment. That's great stuff. We really appreciate it. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
So that's going to do it for tonight, and we're going to see you in about a week's time. That's Jay. I'm Cole. Thanks so much, and we will see you in October. Peace out.
Thanks, guys.